It's showtime. All right. Now, first things first, got to get to making sure that I'm getting this up on because this is going to do 5 platforms. I upgraded my software, my streaming software. I jumped up to the next level again. It's quite a drastic increase, I tell you, but it gives me the potential to do more destinations. And also, I'll just mention I got myself a late post Christmas uh, gift, and not just the mic. No, the mic was actually, I think, right around Christmas, but I got myself a camera as well. Hopefully, that's just out of the box settings. I still have to tweak it. Matter of fact, this thing can stream. I can stream in 4K, although I'm sure you don't want to see my face that close up. Actually, I used to on the stream software, you can do the thing where they try to, beautify your face. And I had that on there for a bit, but I do even at the lowest levels, like, yeah, I don't know, it looks weird, man. Yeah, you're just gonna have to put up with my ugly mug. Whatever, right? Anyways, but yeah, so like I say, it's just fresh out of the box settings here, so I don't know how it looks, but I'm sure it's pretty decent. But yeah, let me go on to first things first. I'm going to go on X and make sure to let people know that I'm live streaming there. So post. Oh, wait, now actually, I got to click on, go to my actual profile, find the live stream. This is finally starting to roll out a lot more of the features on X. So, and like I say, now I can even, if you comment, now if anyone's on X, I'd love to actually test this and let me know if you do end up commenting, say this is coming from X, right? Because apparently I'm supposed to be able to see comments now that are posed on X. I'm supposed to be able to see it through my software. So hopefully this works. But anyways, yeah, let me make sure this is working here. Yeah, let me mute that. Now let me just repost it and let people know I'm live. I'm live. Yeah, and I'm feeling a lot better now. Still not 100%, but feeling pretty damn good. Pretty damn good. So all should be well. Okay, there we put that out. Oh, by the way, just to let you know, so this is going to be live streamed on Facebook, obviously X, YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey. Strangely enough, I haven't even been live streaming to Odyssey, but and I'm supposedly only allowed to do like 3 destinations, which so at the time I was doing YouTube when I was restricted to the 3, it was YouTube, Twitter, and Rumble. But a lot of them are getting still somehow posted to the Odyssey. Unfortunately, not everyone though. So, anyways, but it's all going to be on all 5 of those platforms today. So you got 5 options to watch this live stream. So no excuse. Just kidding. But anyways, yeah. So I got that. Yeah, Facebook, they'll get the notification or anyone that scrolls on my feed. Rumble. Yeah, I think we're okay. Actually, let me just check on the Rumble thing first here. I should check and make sure that's working. Actually, might as well check them both. Like I say, as per usual, give people some time to get notified anyways. Right? Oh, says live. It says live. So that's a good sign. That's a good sign. Yep. So I'll just type in there. Thanks for joining the live stream. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay. And then we'll go over to, like I say, the Odyssey and just check on that. Well, what's this saying? If you're having trouble starting a stream, or if your stream shows that you're live but aren't, try to reset if the problem persists. Well, let's click on it and see what's going on. Well, it's working. So yeah, so everything seems to be working. Well, isn't that just fantastic? You just gotta love when everything works, right? Yeah. Um. Anyway, so yeah, let me get back to okay. I kind of lost my train of thought here. I'm so tempted to put my glasses on to help things, but I don't know. Still haven't got to the point. Actually, this camera is supposed to be good in low light, but I was kind of hoping maybe I can even get to the point where I don't have to even use those ring lights. I might have to actually invest in. My son was showing me there's different lights. What do they call them? Anyways, by the way, how's the sound there? Want to make sure I got Doesn't look like it's too loud, actually. I wonder, might have accidentally bumped my volume. So just let me know there, folks. Let me turn that up just a bit here. Let me just make sure. Okay, that was probably a little bit too loud, but let me just make sure if you folks would let me know. In addition to the comment on X, I know it's like, holy shit, we just barely joined the stream and you're putting us to work already. Sorry, like I said, just trying to test things out here, folks. But yeah, oh, actually, there's a few comments already. I see rectitudes in the stream here, so let me just get to rectitude media. At this point, Canada is too far gone. Well, I can't agree with you on that one. It's this is the thing, right? Is I don't have a defeatist. I don't even think I have one cell in my body that allows for a defeatist mindset. I don't know. Surely there is. I mean, obviously, I must, right? And there are days where, trust me, I do share your concern, right? But I mean, if I genuinely believe that it's too late, then I guess I wouldn't really even bother wasting my time doing what I'm doing, right? So no. I won't necessarily agree with that one, Rec, dude. But thanks for joining the stream. Really appreciate that. Oh, it's all good. It's all good. Anyways, I'm gonna shut up before I piss everyone off again. Nah. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about that. If you have something that you genuinely got to say, well, I mean, of course, everyone. I mean, I definitely recommend we all have a little social consciousness or self awareness, right? So we're not just, just right being completely ridiculous. But if you got something that's on your mind, share it. Share it. Yeah, that's no problem here, as you know. Oh, sweet. Nice. Well, thanks. I appreciate that. All right. The content looks and sounds better every time I come here. Right on. Well, that's a positive thing. All right. I'm peaked. All right. I'm out, shutting it off. I like to finish on a high note. No, just kidding. Seinfeld watchers will get that reference, right? The George thing. You remember that? Anyways, I know. I can just tell you sometimes I was like, why do I even bother with all this stuff that kind of puts me in a negative attitude? Why don't we just talk about positive stuff all the time? But then again, that probably wouldn't work out too well either. Actually, there's probably plenty enough channels out there. And I do that too in my downtime, is just watch, sometimes it's just mindless nonsense that I watch, right? Just, well, I mean, I'm into like trucking and heavy equipment. I might just sit down and watch some crazy stuff guys will do with the excavators and stuff. I don't know, whatever, just some good old fashioned fun, right? Hey, Zach, thank you for joining the stream as well, man. Ben, if I said I wanted to save the world, would you help me do it? For sure. I'm right there with you, Zach. I'm right there with you. Although the problem, right, I suppose, is, let me put my psychologist cap on, right? And it's like, the problem, Zach, and I'm sure you're well aware of this anyways, is, you can't really save the world until the world is at least willing to show that they want to be saved, right? And well, that's where you got to break it down to the individual. Now, there are some people, and we're seeing there are definitely a substantial portion of people in the world who want to be saved. But if you ask them their personal opinions, what they want to be saved from, how they want to be saved, and who they want to save them, well, this is the area where it's like, whoa. Yeah, we liberty lovers, we still got quite a bit of work cut out for us, right? Because those three questions, you're not going to get happy answers that are going to be appealing to you anyways. Or at least if you're a fellow libertarian or anarchist or voluntist or people that just don't, want to live in a world where everyone uses, force and theft as their means to an end, right? But hey, that's the thing, right? I mean, think about how hopeless it must have looked for humanity so many other times in the past. I mean, just the Dark Ages alone, which lasted for a long, long time, right? And who's to say if even the stories were told about right? I mean, if you can't have actual knowledge that's 100% guaranteed that you know all that stuff, but we do know there's definitely been times of trials and tribulations throughout human history. And, somehow we, or at least the people that really, fight hardest to break free from that stuff, well, you would see it, of course, as bunch like a roller coaster, right? So there's peaks and valleys and all kinds of areas in between. Where we're at in this particular stage or junction, I don't know. I'd say we're down there pretty far right now, but that's the thing. It depends on how you look at it, perceive things, because we're actually, the fact that we live in the information age, and I can put forth this kind of a live stream on a pretty shoestring budget, right? Especially compared to anyone in the established media. And I mean, yeah, I don't get as large of an audience, but I got an audience filled with some very knowledgeable and wise people. And I mean, that's got to mean something. And I'm just one person, and you're just each individual's yourself. Think about how many other people are basically out there doing similar or the same kind of thing. So once again, I always hold out hope. Anyways, let me just get back in. There's another comment here. We have to write two books: the book of light, which is the plan for the future, and the book of dark, which is how we get there. Oh, really? Very interesting. Listen, Zach, if you want, a matter of fact, I remember we've talked before. If it's the same Zach, I remember. And is it Wasserman? Wasserman, right? I'm not sure if that's if you're even the same person or what. But listen, if you want to discuss and you want to talk about writing books and stuff like that, listen, you're piquing my interest already. So reach out to me in a message, subsequent to this live stream, and we'll talk about it. Like I say, I'm game. I'm down. I'm down. You do the writing, I'll do the talking. No, you get what I'm saying, right? I'm not the greatest kind of a writer, but anyways, here. Hiya! Tony's Coffee House. Hey, Tony, right on, right on. I had a bunch of coffee this morning, feeling good. I gotta have my coffee. My goodness, it's strange, but I mean, it's obviously understandable. But when I come across people that don't drink coffee, it's very strange. Everyone I think I've ever known seems to love coffee, right? But there are the odd exception and outlier out there that's not really big into the coffee. But fortunately for Tony's Coffee House, like I say, there are very rare exceptions and quite a very tiny minority of people. So I'm sure you're doing fine there, Tony, or hopefully you are, anyways. Hi, everyone. Hope you're having a great weekend. Yes. Good point. Good point, Rectitude. I like hearing your opinion. Well, thank you very much, Tony's Coffee House. I really appreciate that. And once again, I'll put the offer to you or anyone else that ever watches my live streams. Yeah, I'm not one of those people that think I'm too big to talk. I mean, I recognize who I am. I'm a truck driver, a Canadian truck driver, right? And even though myself, I've even had some small claims to fame and some, popular followings in the past. I'm still grounded, thanks to the kind of people I surround myself and my family and stuff. So yeah, I'm always willing to, no matter who you are, and that's the thing. I've been in that mindset where I think, oh, that person isn't going to want to talk to me. Who am I? I'm a nobody, right? But that's a self-esteem thing, and it's sadly something that I don't know if it's jammed into our head as Canadians when we're young. I don't know. Seems to be, anyways, or the preponderance of evidence suggests that. But yeah, break free from that, man. Just like I say, just be willing to, if you want to engage and have a conversation, just accept that, yeah, I'm just average person like anyone else, and I'm always willing to engage, and I've been wrong. So if you're worried about, oh, what if I say something wrong? Well, hey, trust me, I've done that many times in my life too. It's called being human, and it's something we all share or have in common. Unless you're one of those grays, are you? Right? But even if you are, no problem. If you're a fellow liberty lover, I'll even accept the grays. Right? Oh, you're in Michigan. Oh, just across the river there. Yeah, I used to cross that border. Was it the Ambassador Bridge? That one is, right? I believe. Yeah. It's been a while between Detroit and Windsor. Took that route many times as a long haul truck driver into the great state of Michigan. Well, thank you very much once again, Tony, for joining the stream. All right. So, like I said, let me get into this a little bit. I just want to make sure I'm not leaving anything out, right? Nope. No, I think we're good. So I didn't want to bring this. Actually, let me just offer one quick caveat for maybe any of the people who might end up watching this stream. And because I used that label, which comes with, negative connotations and, the kind of stereotyping that the establishment would suggest for someone like myself that would even say such thing as the Great Replacement. Oh, he's a white supremacist or a racist or a whatever phobe, right? No. Matter of fact, as you'll hear, as I'm talking about and discussing this particular subject matter, that I don't have nothing against any individual. Well, I should say most individuals who come to this country, at least if it's for good reasons, right? But I also accept the fact that Hashtag not all, right? There are definitely a subsect, and it might even be a minority of people who are coming to this country with nefarious or ill intentions, right? That's I would suggest that's probably the overwhelming case. I believe most people generally just are looking to better themselves or their lot in life, right? You gotta believe that's true because we've had immigration in this country for the entire history of this country, right? As a matter of fact, all of our ancestors that come to this country, unless you're First Nation people, in terms of the country of Canada, right, is you were an immigrant at some point, or your parents, grandparents were. So once again, this is not you're not going to hear any anti-immigrant tirade, right? And I know that gets lots of clickbait, but that's why I stay well clear of this, even knowing that sure I might entice a much larger audience, but that's the thing. I don't want the kind of audience of people who want to play that kind of ridiculous identity politics or this collective guilt and punishment nonsense, right? No, I want to hold people who are responsible for some things that are turned out to be very bad for not just existing Canadians, but potential future Canadians. I want to point out who the people are, the culprits, attempt to hold them to account in some regard, and shine a little light about things in a more nuanced manner than I see out there in typical, whether you're talking about the establishment media or even some of these anti-establishment figures or characters, right? Because like I say, a lot of these topics, and especially in particular when you're talking about mass immigration, right? It requires some serious nuance. I mean, well, like I say, if you want to properly educate and inform people, right? If you're just into things for the click, sure, just do whatever. But actually, after I already created this, somewhat, I will admit, somewhat clickbaity title, right, for this particular stream, I got thinking afterwards, what I should have, the real way I should have worded it is the great displacement, then replacement, right? And once again, not targeting or attacking anyone who wants to come here to better themselves or their lot or that of their families. But we have to acknowledge, well, first and foremost, just look at who's in charge, especially in particular. Let's just talk since 2015 until now. The Trudeau Liberals, right? And we've heard the rhetoric, and we've heard from some of the the people in corporations, right? We know the kind of people who are major advocates or proponents of mass immigration. And I mean, sure, they put on some rhetoric, but in reality, right? Que bono. Who's truly benefit? I mean, from Trudeau and the Liberals' point of view, right? Or at least their perception is that they're going to benefit by increasing their voter base, right? And in terms of the public sector, big government, those departments are going to benefit from either, growing or expanding these systems, because once again, then they can keep increasing their budgets, right? The bureaucracy, the deep state, or by, creating economic situations or scenarios where they're helping these immigrants or asylum seekers or whatever, right? So there's all kinds of people who greatly benefit themselves primarily by having this mass immigration push. Once again, and corporate leaders. So a corporate leader, if you're in the business world and because of inflation, and once again, it's not hating on all business owners, just business owners have to acknowledge it's, yes, I recognize big government, the central bank has placed a lot of you people in precarious situations where you're just barely scrambling to keep your head above water as it is. And you're like, well, I need to keep wages down because, my employees and wages, that's a huge portion of my expenditure, right? Yeah. But once again, stop contributing to this race to the bottom. It would be the first bit of advice that I would lend to anyone. Is I get it. We're all in a precarious situation. And this is one of the areas where it's like, well, let's just talk about it, right? Because we know you get into some of these rooms with some of these central planning elitists, they're having big old chats about this kind of stuff. But you can rest assured that there's very few, if any, I would say probably not many or any at all, people in the room that would stand up and vocalize the kind of things that I would vocalize. No, because that would probably make a lot of people in those rooms very uncomfortable. Rightfully so. But once again, we know that there's a lot of people in this country who will benefit from mass immigration. But to suggest or pretend that it's just a win-win-win situation or scenario for everybody, I mean, come on. Let's once again, this is just about being honest and articulating that kind of honesty in a manner so that people are thinking about these kinds of things in a much more nuanced manner, right? So that's the big thing. Sure, people benefit, but I mean, just off the top of my head, let's think about a few areas where there isn't, where it's a net negative, right? Healthcare. I mean, come on, how many stories I'm seeing today, yesterday, the day before, how the hospitals and the healthcare system, long-term care centers in this country are, understaffed, they're overworked, not enough resources, blah, blah, blah. I mean, we're hearing constantly like where these hospitals are just filling up, and even after COVID, and it's not the dominant thing in the country anymore, right? Where it's still, so they can't even use the excuse of COVID. But I mean, hello, the old law of supply and demand. So yeah, if you bring it in, 500,000, and yeah, you'll see some of the numbers that I'll present in here, even more so, right? In one example here, you'll see where it's actually almost 500,000 people, or just shy of 500,000 people in one quarter. That's 3 months. Did you see a whole lot more hospitals getting built during that time? No. To keep up with the population growth? No. So what does that tell you? Actually, I better turn the volume down there. It looks like it's peaking a little bit too much. So what does that tell you? Right? They don't have a proper plan. These are people who, once again, and they know what's going on. That's the other thing too. We all know at this point in time, and you folks are going to know, or I know, but how even their own people on the inside are telling them that this is going to cause or have ramification effects on not just the healthcare, but housing, the housing market. Now we've heard like basically all the people who are major proponents typically of mass immigration. And I think what it is they're finally seeing the writing on the wall. And that's all it is at the end of the day is polling. These people don't give a shit about anything other than, does it poll good? Right. Right. Will I gain more votes by supporting this or not? Right. That's typically how things fly these days, which is just absolutely insane. Right. But we're seeing the central banker, some of the folks at the Central Bank of Canada, some of Canada's economists, top economists, and, whatever. I mean, whether they come from academia or they're genuine, out in the real world economists, a lot of people out there have been saying, like, this whole thing, like I say, whether you're talking about healthcare or housing or wages, all of these things that are massively and directly affected by mass immigration, they've been told this. And some of the evidence that's coming and information that's coming late suggests they've been told this for quite a long time now. And yet they still persist, right? So once again, it's not about, the people who are coming to this country. It's the actions, the deeds, and the reasoning behind why the people in this country who are running this country or ruling over the people of this country, right? Why are they so desperate to push this mass immigration policy and force it on the Canadian people? Because once again, we're even seeing now where it's not just affecting, what would be considered the old stock Canadians, but no, it's directly affecting, having major ramifications and negative consequences, even for these new Canadians or these immigrants that are coming to this country, or the temporary foreign workers, or the students, the international students, the tens of thousands of asylum seekers. I mean, it's affecting everybody. So, you can't even make any claims that I'm solely only caring or showing any concern for the whole stock Canadians. Yeah, I think it's terrible and detrimental for people who are promised or sold a bill of goods, and they show up in this country and have to live rough or homeless themselves, right? Pretty sure they could have done that back in the country. I'm pretty sure they might even had at least better circumstances than that in the country of origin. So once again, but I'm going to get into a few of these topics. So let me start bringing them up here now. Or some of these articles, I should say. Now, the first few, I believe they were good to go, but I don't pay for it. And I don't know if it's because when I refreshed my screen or what, but They seem to be behind the paywall. You get so many free ones, but I don't know. Like I say, for some reason now, some of them. But I mean, I could still at least get enough pertinent information to kind of, kind of paint the story, kind of paint the picture, anyways, to give you the information here. So, okay. So here we go. So this is a National Post article. In 25 years, up to half of Canadians may identify as racialized or visible minority, report finds. If current trends persist, the population will double in 25 years. By 2041, most Canadians will be immigrants or the children of immigrants. Now, once again, and this was reported by Joseph Breen, December 29th, 2023. So once again, I mean, just think about and the kind of people who Trudeau is trying to entice, right? The rhetoric that he uses, and the fact that even if they're people that are just with nothing but good intentions, right? Once they get in this country, let us not forget, folks, we cannot ever forget that diversity, equity, inclusion, which we all know, like I say, you got to remember the words or the terms they use are basically the antithesis of what the underlying structure that they're trying to create. So diversity, equity, inclusion sounds good in theory, except you know who's not included in all that diversity, equity, inclusion? Yeah. People like myself, people like my sons, right? That are white. Well, they're not middle-aged men, right? I am middle-aged man, but they're white heterosexual men. And think about not just those in academia with the whole DEI and the woke, right? And the ESG, all of this agenda-driven identity politics bullshit, and the rhetoric espoused by, like I say, a preponderance of people in the establishment, not just media, but ruling class in particular, and mostly those on the political left, right? But trust me, I'm not going to leave the right-wingers off the hook in this as well, because they're just as, like I say, for different reasons, mind you, they're kind of accepting of the mass immigration, especially those who are more aligned with the business or the corporate communities, or maybe like to buy a bunch of homes and be rent seekers, right? You know what I mean? So there are a lot of people who are benefiting from staying in not just mass immigration, but this massively inflated housing bubble that is built up in this country, right? So once again, even if all these people have nothing but the best of intentions when they're coming to this country, they're going to come here, and especially the young ones are going to be taught, and they're going to be surrounded by people who have been constantly inundated with this woke DEI, ESG type agenda, identity politics stuff, right? So, like I say, not saying anything that's bad about them, but if the politics of the day teaches these people, right, to hate on people like myself, well, it's a bit of a detriment, right? Especially when you get to the point where, as it's suggested here, where immigrants may end up being in the majority position, because you don't even need the majority in terms of population, but that's what they're discussing here, is you don't even need to be in the majority. Matter of fact, you could be even at what are we at now? 23%? I think, yeah, 23%. We'll get to that number a little bit later on. I think it's 23% of all Canadians identify as immigrants, right? So think about it. And I've covered this in the past, and you folks have been longtime watchers. During the last couple federal elections, as a percentage of the actual voting age population, not just those who voted, because we always got to keep in mind that, 65% of the people that may actually show up and vote, but there's that 35 to 40% who don't ever vote. So out of that 60%, 60+% who show up to vote, that only represents, like I said, when you break it down, and I've covered this, and you can look through my past live streams if you want to, just put in a couple keywords for your search. But basically, so let's use the example in one of the elections that I remember off the top of my mind, right? So what was it? 6 million or so for the Trudeau Liberals, 5 point something for the Conservatives. So I think it might have been one of the first election when Trudeau come to power. But basically, if you took that 6 million Canadians and adjust it for the population size of the time, the people who chose to vote for the Liberals, which gave them, I believe it was a majority government, if I remember correctly, was if you worked it out how much it was going to be, how much a representative of the actual voting age population in the country, it worked out to be roughly in around 23%, right? So that alone, that 23% is enough. And once again, they were people that were here long before the Trudeau mass immigration bumper push, right? So you can't blame any of the new migrants or asylum seekers or any of that stuff for that. But even under that scenario, all it took was 23% of people who massively benefit at the expense of others due to the kind of policies that the Trudeau Liberals have implemented over the decades, right? So government workers, once again, crony corporate. I mean, right? All of those people that worked out to be 23, 24% of the population, yep, they're not going to shoot themselves in the foot. And they're the ones that have continued, even since 2015, even after all the COVID nonsense. Them, and of course, the end dippers under Jagmeet Singh are the ones that have constantly, whether he's in a majority or a minority position, he's still in fucking power. He's still ruining and destroying countless lives of millions of Canadians, right? And forcefully redistributing, trying to psychologically manipulate and cajole and create all this division with the identity politics stuff and that whole targeting the unvaccinated. Think about all that has taken place. And once again, all that was required was 23% of the adult population to agree, or even if they didn't necessarily agree with Trudeau, it was like, well, it's better I benefit myself than someone else. That's something rational self-interest, folks. It's a reality. And to pretend that people aren't going to be more interested in themselves. I mean, you can pretend that people are just, blindly benevolent all the time, and not to suggest some aren't, or at least sometime, but to pretend all people are all the time. I mean, come on, just give your head a shake, right? So that there alone tells you that yes, people should be at least have heightened concern for the kind of policies and especially the underlying reasoning that might be the cause of this massive push for immigration. Now, of course, you can add some other factors in that too, and I have in the past. I don't leave out the fact that, yeah, think about all these leftists, right, that told a bunch of young people, even people of my generation, right, were the first bunch. Well, actually, no, my parents' generation were probably the first bunch that got sold that bill of goods, especially the women. Oh, yeah, put off your career or put off having kids and doing all that normal stuff, having a family, making that a priority. No, you need to get off there and be a good little slave surfer subject to the ruling class, right? And they enticed a lot of women to fall for that, right? Now, some, maybe they're just career-oriented and driven, and nothing against those folks. But I mean, think about how many generations were sold the bill of goods to not have kids and prioritize, getting an education and making the coin, right? And once again, I'm not against people making some coin, but now because of that demographic trend of nobody having kids for successive generations, or very few people, or a lot less people having kids, right? Not even to the point, once again, we're now below replacement rate. So yes, once you get to the point where you don't even have replacement rates, well, yes, that's an excuse. But once again, why is that the case? It's because all the thought leaders, right, the experts and the opinion makers out there, the ruling class, right, they're the ones that initiated and started all this decline by pushing these policies and cajoling and convincing people, propagandizing people that, oh yeah, you'll be much better off and much happier, lady or woman or young girl, to go out and work rather than have some kids, right? But yeah, so they fucked that fucking policy up completely to the point where, yeah, oh shit, we don't have enough people to take care of all the aging and elderly Canadians today. Oh, so what's their answer? Throw another Band-Aid on it by, trying to bring in millions and millions of immigrants to this country to try to fill that void, that gap. But as we're seeing, look at the massive consequences and ramification that's having on not just our healthcare, right? Not just on housing, but what else? I actually wrote a few more things. There's all kinds. The wages was the other one, actually, in particular, right? Because you got to remember, folks, these people are coming from countries, and it doesn't even matter. Like I said, it doesn't matter if you're talking about Ukraine. It has nothing to do with skin color. I don't care if they're coming from fucking Ireland. To me, it has nothing to do with what country they're coming from or what color their skin is. No. But what it does have to do with is the fact that, once again, especially when you're talking about the wages, very few countries on this planet, right? Well, actually, Ireland might be in terms of GDP per capita. I don't know, but there's a lot of countries that these people are coming from where what people take home as a wage, as an income, whether it's weekly, monthly, or yearly, is much, much lower than it would be when they get to this country, right? So you could bring someone here, and I actually, I find it even vile at times. Although if that's just a stepping stone, fine. But to see a lot of these immigrants coming here, and some of them, and we've even heard that even have like professional degrees or come from professional backgrounds, to what? Serve our fucking coffee, our donuts, or to get us a table, right? Like what the? To me, that's. But I mean, once again, but it shows you that these people, or at least a portion of them, are willing to work at minimum wage. And maybe there's a lot of people that work in these institutions would love to get something more than the lowest possible wage ever and might rightfully deserve to be paid more. This is the problem with this one-size-fits-all approach, and I've covered this in the past anyways. So look at my past videos when you talk about the minimum wage thing, right? But, I mean, the fact that there's basically, and that's just one industry. This takes place no matter if you're talking about blue collar, white collar, lower class, middle class, or upper class. Like any one of those positions, yes, your bargaining power for your wages gets suppressed and destroyed if there are people that are brought to the equation who will take much less. I mean, reality 101, we'll call that one. Anyway, so I'll take this one off because I just wanted to cover that in particular because that's something I think is quite profound and quite important. Anyways, there was something else I was kind of thinking of. I'm going to close these ones up as they go along. But yeah, let me read that. Well, here's another one here. Because once again, and all of these will be linked in the description of the stream, of course. Okay, this one here is from Terry Glavin, from contributor to the National Post. Immigration and housing, the elephant in Canada's crisis room. The Trudeau Liberals have created this mess. A serious national conversation is needed to solve them. And we, right there, hey, I'm with you, Terry. I wish that conversation would take place. Although, once again, good luck trying to get some of these hacks in the establishment ruling class, or a part of the ruling class, to want to discuss it, whether they're on the right or the left side. Because like I said, we all have to admit there are a lot of people, both on the left and the right in this country, who are greatly benefiting themselves with this mass immigration push. Anyways, this was published January 3rd, 2024. Oh, yeah, right. This was another one that is behind a paywall. Anyways, I am going to throw my glasses on here for a little while, folks. Sorry about that, but I just got to, so I can see these things better. Anyways, so let me stop that one. But it even admits right here, well, I mean, suggests here immigration and housing, of course, the elephant in the room. And once again, we're all well aware of this stuff. Now, just to flip things upside down, once again, because I want to emphasize that it has nothing to do with the individuals coming to this country. I have nothing against the people who are coming to this country, or at least the ones, once again, for the right reasons, right? Now, here's an example. And this here, fortunately, I don't have too many of those kind of people that watch my streams anymore. They've all gone elsewhere. They get their identity politics filled somewhere else, and good for them, because, yeah, I don't like playing that shit myself. But, yeah, so this is an example that maybe if there is a few identity politics folks watching this stream, or subsequently end up watching this stream, look at this. So let's say you're a person that's all for parental rights and totally against the whole LGBTQ agenda kind of stuff being forced and thrust upon the students in this country, right? And once again, let me just offer yet another caveat. How simple is it when these people play these stupid fucking games of left versus right, and how, like these parents, let's say even if they're Christian parents who don't want their kids taught this stuff, right? You have no right to prevent my kid from learning that stuff in school. Like the parent, let's say, that wants their kids to learn about all this LGBTQ and all this identity politics stuff, right? Well, the real simple thing is if you want to, you opt into it. As a parent, you opt into your child, because no one even, I'm not suggesting that, people can't learn this stuff. Although I will say this first and foremost, how fucking stupid is it to pretend that you need to bring this stuff to the classroom anyways? I mean, we live in the age of information. Everyone that's fucking even talking about this stuff, this is the craziest thing that I think is so strange. No matter if you're from the left or right or anywhere in between, if you're talking about this stuff online, which is where we all are these days, right? Of course, we're living in a real world too, but we're all online. Even some of the poorest people among us are all online, and we all have access to the internet and Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever your Bing or whatever your search engine of choice, to fucking pretend that you can't learn about all of this, even the DEI or the LGBTQ or trans stuff or this woke stuff. It's all out there on the internet, and it's literally just at your fingertips, literally mere seconds away if you want to learn about this stuff. So to pretend that you need to bring this to the classroom, no, classrooms are meant to be about teaching academics, and that's really all they should be about at the end of the day. Now, when I was a kid, of course it was easy, and to this day I still agree. When you get up into the higher grades, maybe, especially when puberty starts to, if you want to teach kids about, like especially boys, here's why you're getting a boner in the middle of the afternoon. Right? I mean, you want to teach that kind of stuff because of the whole anatomic changes. Although, once again, what the fuck is wrong with the parents or anyone else that's part of these people's lives teaching them? But once again, even if you want to have some kind of baseline sex education in the later years, when people are, especially when students are kind of going through that whole, physical changes in their life, whatever, just to teach them anatomy and stuff like that. But once again, to get into this whole fucking, the sexual preference stuff, and because we know there are people with serious, genuine biases that are pushing this stuff. Hashtag not all, but definitely some. So why, once again, first of all, once again, let me reiterate, no need to jam this stuff into the schools, in the education system. All kinds of ways for anyone to be educated and informed regarding any of this stuff. Two, even under the scenario where they're in the classes today, if you want to alleviate the concerns of Christians or people who don't want their kids taught this stuff, stop trying to force it on them. You don't want Christians to restrict your access to knowledge, right? Okay, well, Christians want you to afford them the same respect and not force and thrust that their kids have to be taught the same shit. Live and let live. That's my mentality. So if you want your kids to be taught that stuff, you do you. Those are your kids. You're going to be the one to deal with the consequences, whether they're positive or negative, for what you want to teach your kids when they're children, right? But for the Christian people or anyone else who don't want their kids taught that stuff, whether you disagree with them or not, whether you want to call them ignorant or not, right? That is their right. They don't have to have, people forcing their ideologies or thrusting the kind of things they want taught on their own kids. They should have the same rights afforded to them as the people on the other side want, in terms of their sovereignty, their individuality, and free choice. That's really what it comes down to today. But anyways, back to this one. So this is, I think I got it already on there, right? So what makes it good? So this is a perfect example. So once again, if you're one of those parents that's against this woke agenda or all this LGBTQ stuff being taught in schools, well, look, here's a perfect example of some people who, whether they're new immigrants or, second, third generation, or even maybe people with just temporary visas, or people who are just come to this country, whatever reason it is. Anyways, I guess you can't say that when you're saying what makes a good Canadian. So these are people who are obviously Canadians themselves. Maybe they're recent immigrants. But this is an area where, once again, these are people who are on your side. So anyone that's using the blanket statement that's anti-immigrant, well, that's really fucking stupid if you're someone that wants to strengthen the cause of parents' rights. Because this Muslim and these Muslim parents themselves are right there with you, right? Which is why I always say, forget about judging people based on their skin color or what's between their legs. Deal with them based on the content of their character, as Martin Luther King once beautifully said, right? So this would be a perfect example where you folks would actually align. So once again, try to take some of that, the identity politics rhetoric out of the equation and just think about things more critically. So Mohammed Bakash calls the Syrian community's participation top-level integration, but it sparked a backlash. This is reported by Jacques Boutrat, January 3rd, 2024. And this is in New Brunswick because of the whole Blaine Higgs thing. And actually, let me just say that right here in the stream too. Yeah, I'm not a conservative, and nor am I, a vocal advocate or supporter of Blaine Higgs and the conservatives. I got to tell you, I expect much better for the people in this country, right? And I like to hold people to a very high bar and a standard. And I think Blaine Higgs has failed in a multitude of ways, and so has many of his MPs. But I got to tell you, just like I put out there on my social media page and on X the other day, and actually I should get to that here in a bit, is don't kid yourself. In this province of New Brunswick, the Liberals or the NDP or the Greens or any coalition of such, if you think the Higgs government is bad, and once again, I'm right there. I'll point out some of the bad things about the Higgs government right along with you. But if you think that any coalition of the left would be better or superior in any way, especially in particular for most just decent, reasonable New Brunswickers, holy fuck, you'd be sadly mistaken. And I hope that most of my fellow New Brunswickers actually realize that, and they're not going to fall for this narrative that I've seen propping up in recent weeks. Anyway, so Mohammed Bakash thought he was being a good Canadian. The Syrian-born economist who was welcomed to Fredericton in 2016 amid a wave of refugees from his war-torn country took a major step towards civil engagement last year. He lost a friend over it and felt the sting of a backlash against the views he was expressing peacefully. That was the hardest part of the story, to be honest, he said. We did not expect such a reaction. Last September 2020, Bakash was among dozens of Muslim New Brunswickers who took part in the 1 million March for Children on the front lawn of the legislature. He was there to oppose policies on LGBTQ issues in provincial schools, something he insisted was not anti-anyone, but an expression of his values, his faith, and his culture. We're not here to encourage hate against anyone, Bakash told Radio Canada during the march. Everyone has the right to do what he or she wants, but we also have the right to raise our kids in a safe environment. So this is a perfect example. This is one area, and we're even seeing that, where people with Muslim faiths and Christian and even Jewish people in particular have found a common area or common ground and a show of unity and solidarity with each other, which is great. I love to see these kind of things taking place, because it gives people, even if you're only going to disagree on or only agreeing currently on one issue, maybe it gives you time and you look at people. At the very least, it brings down the other, the hatred of the other, because you're standing now you're standing in front of the other, and it's like, oh, I was told these white people, Christians, are just the worst of the worst, but actually, no, we actually agree on something right here fundamentally, and they seem like decent people by having a conversation with them. I think these kinds of things are great. The march was one of several held across Canada under the slogan of parental rights, a label that critics say ignores the rights of LGBT. Once again, I have not heard anyone, not suggesting that there's no fool or nut bar out there that would suggest as such, but I so far have not heard any, and particular prominent voices of anyone who are under the parents' right movement, suggesting that they want to target, harass, bully, intimidate, or restrict the rights of any of these LGBTQ people or youths, right? I mean, to suggest as much, which is basically what CBC is doing here, it's not just vile, but it's absolutely misrepresentative of the facts on the ground. The marches in New Brunswick has extra meaning because of Premier Blaine Higgs changes to Policy 713 in June. It now requires school staff to get the consent of parents before letting LGBT students under age of 16 use the names and pronouns they choose in classrooms. Higgs greeted the marchers on September 20th, but not the counter protesters across the street. Now, obviously, it's not just the labels that they want to place on them. I mean, think about it. As a parent, if you have a kid, right? Although I would suggest even for some of these parents, start playing a much more active role in your lives, the lives of your kids, and maybe don't be fucking dicks, right? That's another thing, or bitches too. That's another thing, because you end up pushing your kids away. And I expect a lot of these LGBT kids may very well, or at least a subsection of them may very well be a consequence of that kind of nonsense. Yes, parents, if you want what's best for your kids, and if you want your kids to make good decisions in their life, play not just a much more active and proactive role in them, but don't be a bunch of fucking hypocrites, and don't be so overly judgmental that you literally cause them to rebel against you, that maybe harms your relationship, but has the potential to harm themselves and their own futures as well. Think more critically about this stuff, for crying out loud. Higgs greeted the marchers on September 20th, but not in the county. Anyway, so I'll just bring that up. But this is, once again, this is a perfect example. And once again, this will be linked in the description of the stream as well. But it's a perfect example of doesn't matter their color, doesn't matter their faith or their religion, right? Doesn't matter, what's between their legs. What matters, are they a decent, upstanding person with compassion for others, right? And have a live, let live mentality. That, to me, that's the most important thing I want. When I think about my neighbors or my community, that is the most important thing to me. Will they respect my sovereignty? Will they not use government as a means to take from me, or to batter me over the head with, or to try to control me in any way? That matters a gazillion times more than, like I say, their skin color, their particular faith, or what's between their legs. Anyway, here's another little aspect, because there's, like I say, there's two portions. Actually, let me just get in the comments before I get into this here. I like to see what you folks are saying in the comments here. As you know, I've just been screwed over too many times and can be cynical, but I can take criticism. Glad you got a positive attitude, man. You rock, man, for sticking it to it all these years. Oh, no problem, Rex, dude. Well, the reason why I can be patient and understanding of these things is because I'm one of the few human beings these days that acknowledge that I can be both, right? I can be the good guy that you see, but I can be a real asshole too. We're all, that's the thing. We're human beings. We're all fallible. We all have the capacity, to be victims and the oppressors. Now, what separates people like myself and people like yourself from so many others is our self-awareness of these facts and our willingness to constantly strive to do better. That is what I do. Doesn't mean I'm never going to fail again. I'll probably fail, but I'm going to get up, brush myself off, and try to continually improve. And that is something I believe that people like yourself are doing. And that's really, really all I can expect from my fellow humans at the end of the day. I don't expect perfection, right? I don't expect that everybody's just going to tell me everything that I've always wanted to hear for the rest of it. No, I'd be fucking a bit creeped out if that was the case, to be honest with you, right? I'd feel like, oh, I'm never going to learn anything ever again if that's the case. But once again, it's our willingness. It's our willingness to learn from our mistakes and constantly strive to do better. That to me, that's the big divide that I see these days. And I'm not even saying the people that are currently my opponents or on the other side of things that are always and forever going to be that way. There's a reason why I keep doing what I'm doing. I'm hoping that maybe I can offer up enough information, some common sense, some reasoned arguments, and some logic, bring all that stuff, compassion and ethics to the equation, that people will maybe gravitate towards me and realize that, they don't have to have a defeatist mindset either. They don't have to feel that they're just stuck in that particular lot that they find themselves in currently. Like I said, we have free will. We all have the capacity to strive and do better. I don't believe in the deterministic mindset. And for the people that do, well, they might be very hard to reach. but I wouldn't even give up on them because even though they may believe in the determinism, because I acknowledge and I believe I am uh, more correct when I believe it when I say that free will is a genuine thing, right? Then I think even they can learn, right? Anyways, but yeah, I get your rectitude. I get you. Listen, it's not hard. It's not hard to get a chip on your shoulder. I had it for a while myself. I agree, but when immigration gets used as a weapon or control mechanism as opposed to helping the economy and integration in society, it becomes 100%. Once again, 100%. Bang on. Right there with you, rectitude. Right there with you, man. I think you're a man. I'm not sure. I shouldn't be so presumptuous, right? You could be a woman, as far as I know, but for all I know. But anyways, regardless of left, right, currently we have a shortage of everything: housing, doctors, etc. Exactly, exactly. And I mean, just base logic 101 is until you fixed or remedied those problems, yeah, it's a bad idea to bring in, you know, what was it, 430,000 people in one corner of this country. Really bad idea to continue doing that kind of stuff, right? Okay, so let me just see here. True, but to be honest, we shouldn't have fired so many of them too. Hmm. I'm kind of a little further away from that, so I'm not sure which one who's fired or anyways. COVID was a money printing scam to bring us into the digital Chinese. So, well, once again, there might be some people who were trying to push for that kind of thing and seen that as an opportunity. Whether it was a coordinated, concerted effort, once again, I can't claim to know that with any genuine validity without actual evidence to back it up, and neither can you, but we can speculate, and there's not a damn thing wrong with speculating. You go ahead and speculate all you want. I'm fine with that. Not a damn thing wrong with it. But we definitely can acknowledge and recognize that the way it was set up, the way it all unfolded, that the incentive structure sure as hell aligned with what you're suggesting, didn't it? Right? Sure as hell did. Sure as hell did. Hey, Liquid Gal, thanks for joining the stream as well. Government doesn't give any real incentives to have children. In the 70s, government told people not to have children because of world population was high. Exactly. You get it, Liquid Girl. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. That's probably because, yeah, so I've moved on past that. So actually, I should have come down and dealt with these comments while I was on that particular subject. Anyways, Century Initiatives are the ones pushing Canada's immigration. Dominic Barton was the biggest pusher. Plus, now the UN agenda is to push bigger immigration in all Western countries. Yep, 100%. Soji, yes. What is that again? Soji. Did you know Soji was made from a single male CEO of a mine company, never married, no children? Not sure if I did know that, to be honest with you. Male, female, and fat and stupid. Male, female, stupid. That one skipped right over my head there, Rob Padley. But anyways, thanks for joining the stream. So let me get back into it. So, because yeah, like I say, on the other side of this thing, right? So not just the mass immigration in terms of people coming to this country, but there's this as well, which obviously has a direct effect and implications for the demographic shifts and how things, unfold in this country and the kind of country we end up in, right? Because once again, a lot of the people, like if you're a typical Canadian fleeing this country in record numbers, well, especially if it's happening, and of course, a lot of it is happening for economic reasons, right? Because I mean, the Americans, even though they're not doing as great as they really should be, but how hard is it to be doing that great? And of course, that at the individual level, that's so varied, it's hard to even say that with any kind of consistency. But the Americans, at the very least, the American economy and the Americans, and because they support each other and have more of an entrepreneurial mindset, right, and more capital at their disposal, is they're like people who are, economically astute, business minded, or entrepreneurship oriented. They're fleeing our country and going to places like the United States. So that's something. And I mean, people have talked about this for years, brain drain. And under, the ridiculousness, the difficulties, and like I say, whether you're the blue collar or the white collar or a professional or someone that's in tech, a lot of these great minds that are leaving this country and seeking out better opportunities elsewhere, that is going to contribute to the demise of this country as well, economically. And I would even suggest even in the social realm as well, right? Because think about even in the social realm, the people who are going to the US look at and perceive the US not just much more freer in the economic sense, but you got to acknowledge that the First and Second Amendment plays a huge factor and role in a lot of those decisions as well. Whereas in Canada, if you're staying here, well, the people that are going to want to stay here, especially when you're literally the northern neighbor to the south where there's that much more freedom. And I'm saying, I'll admit, America's not nearly as free as they used to be, but they are in comparison to contrast to a lot of us up here in Canada. So when you have that option, right, and we're literally neighbors. So no matter what country you're traveling from, right, if your two options are Canada, who's constantly being pushed into this more socialist, woke, identity politics agenda, whereas America, at the very least, now I'll admit that Biden's trying to push for the same thing, but a lot of Americans are expecting Trump to come to power down the U.S., and I would imagine even some immigrants are. So they might be, or even Canadians are like, well, I'll go down to the U.S., put up for this last little bit of the Biden, but hopefully things will get on fast track where social and economic policy will be more conducive with my line of thinking and reasoning, right? So that's another area where, this is going to be detrimental to not just the culture, but the economic and social aspects or social thing might be a little easier because as you bring more and more socialists, there might be more cohesion among those, but it's going to be much more detrimental for people who aren't in that particular mindset or prefer that ideology, right? So anyways, Canadians fleeing country in record numbers, data shows. So this is reported by Quinn Patrick, December 27th, 2023. While Canada may be experiencing record high population growth, there is an exodus of its citizens with emigration or reverse immigration surging this year. The outflow of citizens in the last 3 months has only been higher 3 other times in the past century, according to data from Statistics Canada. More and more Canadian residents are leaving to go live in foreign countries, with immigration up 3% in the last quarter. In the last 73 years of data collection, only 3 other years have seen larger quarterly emigration numbers: 2016, 1967, and 1965. In 2016, a record high exodus occurred, and that trend has continued, with higher than average immigration becoming normalized. Quarterly outflows from 2016 onward have been almost 50% higher than previously. Canada is currently on track to hitting 79% of the outflow recorded last year, with 74,000 immigrants so far year to date. So 2016, Trudeau came to power in 2015. Coincidence? Once again, I don't know if there's a direct cause and effect correlation with that. I wouldn't even pretend that I know that. Once again, I never look to deceive or manipulate anyone, right? I'm just talking about this stuff, basically thinking out loud about this stuff. I mean, could be a coincidence, but it also could not be, right? The fact that 2016 and onward, you have a lot more Canadians, leaving this country. I mean, it might even be some of the immigrants that came here like, this ain't even, I was sold a bill of goods and now I'm out, right? Or some of them that have become Canadians and subsequently chose to leave. So once again, not even suggesting it's just old stock, could be a mixture of both, right? Even if the final quarter of 2023 is lower than the previous 2 years, it will still be one of the biggest years for outflow on record. This reality can easily be ignored because of the simultaneous high influx of record high immigration, as policymakers tend to point to the net increase as a way to ignore the issue. The main question this outflow raises is, if Canadians most familiar with the country see no opportunity in staying here, how could immigrants? This trend of onward migration, where immigrants arrive in Canada and then subsequently leave, has been steadily increasing since the 1980s. So anyways, folks, I think this is a pretty good article. So like I say, this will be linked in the description of the stream below as well. And I'll just bring this one up. I'm not even going to read a whole lot from this one, but I did want to at least let you know that in addition to the immigration thing, it's not going to be a whole lot different. And I'm not suggesting not to vote for the Conservatives or any of that stuff. Do your thing. Do your thing. Listen, when it comes to the voting intentions of Canadians, I don't know. It is what it is. And I'm not looking to try to tell people what to do. I'm just going to lay out the facts as I know them, right? And from what I perceive, not just on the housing and immigration, but a lot of different other areas. But here in particular, this particular article from the National Post is at least pointing out the housing plans. So if you heard Andrew Lawton interview Pierre Poilievre, Andrew really, really tried to push to see if Pierre was going to bite in terms of saying, yes, he would reduce immigration levels. No way. Not even after 2 or 3 attempts. No way would he touch it. It was like the third rail. All he would say is he would tie it to immigration numbers. And just like I said in a past live stream, even if you did that, tied it to immigration levels now, well, what about the massive, gigantic backlog? So you're still never going to get ahead. I would never get ahead. But I can't help but think, I mean, Pierre Poilievre and his wife, they both own rental properties. We all know what happens the minute you greatly reduce mass immigration in this country to the point where, there's not so much stress on the housing market. We know what happens as a consequence of that. Prices begin to fall. And these people, and like I said, there's a lot of them, a lot of older Canadians in particular, right? Or wealthy Canadians who have massively benefited themselves. I mean, to a substantial degree, a lot of money, making a lot of money hand over fist by becoming rent seekers. Now, listen, I'm all for it. Listen, own an apartment building, which is literally designed as rental properties. Do your thing. Do your thing. I'm not against people collecting rent from people. So when I say rent seekers, no, that's not people who, or if you just happen to, have an extra house and it's like, well, I need someone to live in it, right? If that's the only reason why you're renting out, totally. But if you're literally buying up houses, right, and in particular individual detached homes, which are particularly and primarily meant to raise a family, right, and to get people to have their own property, right, which is something that every Canadian should strive for. But if you're making that next to impossible because you want to be a rent seeker, yeah, I got a serious fucking problem with people like you. Not saying all. Like I say, there's some people might even have good intentions. But perhaps you should find another way to make money, right? There's a lot of Canadians, younger Canadians or even newer Canadians, who are having to live out in the fucking cold, out on the streets, in the rough, because they can't find anywhere to live. And I think that's quite a terrible thing, right? Anyways, but yeah, so I'll bring this up. But just like I say, make no mistake that the Conservatives, even if they're a little better, or even if you're just like, I just want to get rid of Trudeau, even if you acknowledge, listen, once again, not telling you what to do, I would even understand if you said, listen, I agree with you, Bennett, man, but we just got to get rid of, listen, I get it. It's very frustrating. I'll even somewhat understand why you make that decision. Just be under no illusion. That's all. Just at least walk into things with your eyes wide open would be my suggestion. So anyway, so once again, let me bring this one up. Now, as I showed earlier, some gentlemen from Syria. So obviously it has nothing to do with where they came from. Seem like great individuals as far as I'm concerned. Matter of fact, sound like people that I'd probably get along, just great with, right? But then there's this, which is a reality, whether you want to acknowledge it or not, right? This is just a reality. That long live the Intifada, roads blocked, flag stomped by cancel Christmas protests. Aside from some noise citations in Ottawa, their actions did not result in consequences for demonstrators. So this, holy geez, all my articles that I had opened up, and actually I had access to all of them, but dang, well, hopefully some of the ones further down the stream are still available. But anyway, so this was basically, these protests. And once again, I'm not even going to get into the whole Israel, Palestine thing. I might cover that again in a subsequent live stream to bring a little bit more nuance to this stuff. Because once again, seeing a lot of people are failing in that regard in this country. Like I say, whether they come from the left or right, a lot of people are playing identity politics with this stuff, and I think it's a detriment, right? Really, to be doing that kind of stuff. I say don't contribute to it if you don't have to. That would be my biggest suggestion, right? But at the very least, we do acknowledge that there are some people in this country, and it looks like a substantial amount, like I say, not going to suggest minority, and any of that stuff. But, there are some people in this country who, don't particularly identify with what you or I would identify as the kind of culture or the kind of country we want to live in, the kind of people we want to surround ourselves with, right? There are people who have much, much different ideas, right? Maybe not so overly concerned like I am with individual rights and freedoms, or freedom of speech for that matter, right? And these are people, and especially if they vote, right? Even if there's some other areas in their life where I might even find some common agreement with them, if they're the kind of people that don't respect my sovereignty, my individual rights, and my freedom of speech, we got a fucking major problem here now, don't we? Don't we? And once again, I would say that for existing Canadians as well. And matter of fact, I have said that for existing Canadians, because I've said many times in the past, even the overwhelming majority of people who have caused harm to me in my life, whether it's social, political, or economic in nature, have been people who share my very same skin color. So once again, pretty bad that I have to keep offering up this caveat, although I know I'm not for you folks. You got to remember, I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for anyone else who might be, tacitly sitting on the sidelines and wondering if I'm worthy of even listening to, right? Because I get how difficult it is out there, especially because, as a libertarian, look at the kind of derogatory shit that has been put towards or suggest that libertarians, right? I mean, people are trying to throw people like myself in line with white nationalists or white supremacists, which is so fucking far away from any reality or anything remotely resembling truth that I just don't know, right? But this is the thing. This is the fucking crazy world we live in. I wish we didn't have to, right? I had the same dream like Martin Luther King. I wish we didn't have to play this kind of identity politics. I think it's such a fucking Herculean waste of fucking time and effort, to be honest with you. I think there's so much better things that we could do than judging each other based on immutable characteristics. It just seems so fucking such a knuckle dragging type of mentality. Sorry if I'm swearing a little bit there, folks, but yeah, I get a little compassionate about this stuff. But anyways, so there's that. So I'll bring this off the stream as well. And here's another thing. Now, once again, this would be for the economic minded folks. And yes, there are some economic minded libertarians. A lot of us libertarians are very much economic minded. And the reason why that is it's not that we're just all about money. Well, for me, I'm speaking for myself and nobody else. It's not that I'm all about money, obviously, right? Because I could have sold myself out many, many times over the course of my life and been greatly rewarded and enriched for doing so. I'll tell you this, 100% factually true. That is the case. But I couldn't live with myself if I did it, right? Some people, they find a way to do it and to try to live with themselves. A lot of times, well, you got to keep, maybe increase the amount of vices or crutches that you need to help you, deal with your particular situation. Once again, I just don't want to place myself in that position to begin with. But I mean, economics, money, right? Oh, it's just money. Well, as a person who works for a living, genuinely, and I work hard for a living, long days, folks, long days, work hard, long days, long, hard days. And that money is a representation of all that work, of all that labor, of all that productivity that I put in. So yes, of course it has to matter. It is that money literally is a representation of the fruits of my labor. So of course I have to care about that. And everyone should, right? But this is an example. So Canada's high immigration is driving down per capita GDP. According to this report, Canada's GDP has contracted, and a new report says it might be driven in part by high immigration levels. Well, I mean, that is actually not hard to understand. And I'll tell you why. First thing I thought off the top of my head is think about the rampant increase of people who are working in the public sector, which, once again, I don't hate on everyone in the public sector. Matter of fact, I even recognize and acknowledge some people who work in the public sector have to do so because there is no private sector choice, which is already a severe detriment to those people. But for the ones who do work in the public sector, I mean, come on, at the very least, baseline acknowledgement is you're definitely, for the most part, not as productive in terms of people in the private sector. because your paychecks are directly reliant on either the tax proceeds or the debts and deficits imposed on hardworking private sector Canadians or the unborn at this particular point in time. When you think about the kind of debt and deficit levels that we're currently experiencing, you're actually talking about future and successive generations who are going to pay for a lot of this stuff, right? And the fact that, you get yourself a nice cushy job, and once again, not hating on anyone for that, but the fact that government, because they can forcefully redistribute wealth and income from the productive people to people that they want to put on the dole, right? That's going to greatly contribute to a reduction in per capita GDP or productivity. Come on, we all know, and of course there's exceptions and outliers, and don't hate on me if you're one of those exception or outliers. I mean, I know these people even exist in the private sector, usually down the bottom end of the pay scale, down around that mandatory minimum place where government plays the biggest role, right? Because of what that incentivizes. But it also happens in the public sector where the way that the government's structured, it incentivizes, people doing less work, right? It's that race to the bottom because they perceive it. If I do less work and I get the same amount of money, well, that's better for me, right? That's the kind of destruction of incentive that the public sector brings to the table. Well, not just that, but I mean, think about it. The public sector, well, you can take, a lot of these positions, you stick around long enough, you get what, 2 months off in a year, 8 weeks, maybe dozens of paid sick days or leave days that you can just take off, right? All the other perks that, once again, can't be offered in the private sector because it would probably break the business, right? But that's the thing with government. So, of course, you're going to see a dramatic drop in per capita GDP or productivity if a lot of these immigrants that are coming to this country don't have an actual private sector job to go to, or the only ones that they're going to is at the low end of that productivity scale, right? These minimum wage jobs. And we're seeing any Canadian life today, when you're going out to your fast food places or any of these places that are typically paying people minimum wage, you're seeing that's where a lot of these immigrants or recent Canadians are ending up, right? So come on, that's going to contribute as well. So once again, whether they're going into government jobs or being relegated or forced into these low wage, minimum wage jobs, of course, that's going to destroy per capita GDP or the productivity of this nation. Now, that is at the macro level. And of course, at the individual level, well, there's lots of nuance there. But at the macro level, it is undeniable. And it's a fact. And it's something that will have an effect and a consequence on us in a myriad of ways. I wish it didn't have effect or a consequence on us in so many ways. But because government combined with business and a lot of some of the banks and everything is so mixed mashed in together and becomes everything is so centrally planned that unfortunately seems like every time the government even remotely sneezes, right, we all get a cold. That's the problem with having big government, is now it has its tentacles in so many areas and aspects of our social and economic lives that it's basically unavoidable at this point, right? Anyway, so I'll share, I'll put this. Yeah, because once again, I can't read that one either. Dang, can I do this one? Shit, they were all. So I'll just kind of scroll through a couple of these real quick because I can't really read them. It cancels out every liberal housing promise and then some. Canada's biggest immigration surge in 70 years. Naturally, you can't add this many people all at once without it having knock-on effects. This was reported by Tristan Hopper, December 24th, 2023. So sorry, folks. Once again, these are behind the paywall. Anyway, so back to, I probably should have had this one brought up. And once again, here we go. So this is a True North article. So this is basically along the lines of what I was mentioning earlier, right? Let me make sure everything's still good over on the old live stream. Yep. Okay, good. Federal public service new hires nearly tripled since 2015. So this is by Quinn Patrick, January 2nd, 2024. Under Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, jobs in the federal public sector have seen threefold growth since he was first elected in 2015, with record growth being reported last year. Additionally, more public servants changed positions, resigned, or were investigated than in any other period under Trudeau. The Public Service Commission of Canada's annual report revealed that the federal public service grew to 274,218 employees by the end of last fiscal year on March 31st, 2023. According to the report, there was an increase of 6.5% year over year and a cumulative growth of 40.4% more than at the end of 2014-2015 fiscal year. So that's a 40% growth. I mean, you're just 10 points shy of doubling, right? Oh, I mean, that's the thing with socialism, folks. At some point in time, right? I mean, or the whole horse, the horse cart, the horse and the cart, right? Right? If you got 10 people, one person, or wait, now, how did that go again? Okay, no, maybe not the horse. If you got one person pulling a cart, or no, sorry, let me try to think of this here. So think about a cart and 10 people. Now, if 9 people are pulling the cart and one person's in the cart, well, that little bit of extra weight of that one person in the cart is not enough to overwhelm the 9 people pulling it. Same with if maybe 2 people end up in the cart and there's still 8 people pulling it, right? You might even depend on how strong they are. Maybe you could even get down to a certain point where it might even be half and half, or maybe even a minority of people who are still pulling the cart as more and more people are in the cart. I mean, you might even get to the point where you have, let's say, six of the 9 people in the cart and only 3 pulling it. Well, even if the 3 people can still pull it, although at some point in time, we all got to acknowledge, at some point in time, reality says you do get to the point at some point in time where there's just not enough people to pull the cart, right? But even if you suggest that there was like what, Samuel Samuelson, I don't know, one of those big giant fucking beasts from Iceland, the strongest man in the world, even if he was that one last guy pulling that cart, right? I know I'm kind of painting a little bit of an oddball scenario here, their analogy, but I think you get the gist of what I'm trying to say is, well, you're putting, first of all, I would suggest that's pretty fucking wrong for all you 8 other people to climb in that fucking cart and place that much burden on that one guy just because he might have the competence or skills or ability to do so, right? I would suggest maybe some of you fuckers shouldn't stop, be so goddamn lazy and get out, maybe help the guy, right? I mean, but once again, that's just me pointing out the fact that, yeah, at some point in time, right, you do finally break the camel's back. Figures from the Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat corroborate the report, revealing that certain departments and agencies not included in the tally also grew by 30% over the same period, hitting a record number of 357,247 additional employees. The government hired 71,000 external employees through the 2022-2023 fiscal year, an increase of almost 10% from the previous year. The report also noted that 59.3% of external hires are internal promotions. Wait a minute. The report also noted that 59.3% of external hires and internal promotions last year were done through non-advertised processes. Okay, whatever. Since 2014-2015, the share of promotions and new hires that were conducted without advertised postings increased by 21.7%. So I don't know if that's going along with just insiders hiring family members or friends, or I don't know if that's where they're going with that. But anyways, just more information, right? Always good to have more information. Another notable increase was the dramatic spike in personal expenditures, up 39.9% since 2021-2022, as reported by the Parliamentary Budget Officer. Spending on professional and special services also increased by 14.7% over the same period. The obvious question from a citizen taxpayer point of view is, we have 40% more people in government and I'm getting 40% faster. Oh, am I getting 40% faster services? I don't think most people feel that value for money, Aaron Woodrick, Director of Domestic Policy at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute, told the Globe and Mail. In the past fiscal year, almost 37% of federal public servants were moved to other positions, promoted, or appointed to acting positions, another record high since 2013-2014. So anyways, that's once again, just more pertinent information to bring the light. And here we go. This is, once again, even the central bankers in this country, right, are willing to come out and say this. So, you know what I mean? Yeah, once again, even if you don't take my word for it, even if you're someone on the left or some of the people that are major advocates, proponents, or supporters of big government or the Central Bank of Canada, right? Well, even your own people, even the people that you look up to, admire, and look for the information for you to learn, well, they're saying the same thing. Government's devotion to high immigration, keeping rent high, Bank of Canada governor. So yeah, in addition to housing costs, got to think about that rent as well, right? And we've definitely seen it, even in provinces like New Brunswick, where I live. It's like unbelievable some of the rents that they're charging in some of the cities like Fredericton or Moncton or St. John. It's unbelievable how high or how astronomical some of the rents are being charged in these places. And what it is, yeah, you got a place to rent. There's a gazillion people looking for a place to live. Well, that puts you on the side of, yeah, gives you a lot of power in that position. Unfortunately, for the people looking for the place to live, gives them basically no power. They're basically at your mercy, right? It's a thing. You always got to think about these things. The beauty of a free market environment, or freedom in particular, is any interaction or transaction always and forever will be a win-win, a net benefit or win to both sides of the equation. Always has been, because if it's done voluntarily without any coercion or force or central banks or governments trying to cajole or manipulation of prices or destruction of currency, without any of that, if you enter into any economic transaction, both of you, right? The whole thing, if you want a McDonald's cheeseburger and McDonald's wants your buck, well, you go to McDonald's, you give them a buck, they give you a cheeseburger, you both walk away feeling fulfilled, right? It's when it gets into the zero-sum game, which always and forever is a consequence of government intervention into the economy. And government, when I say government, yes, that includes the Bank of Canada. And for those who will say, oh yeah, but the Bank of Canada, just like the Fed, well, they're private. Well, just go look up the Bank of Canada Act or the Federal Reserve Act. None of these things exist in reality, right, without an act of legislation. So you can pretend, or they can even suggest that they're arm's length or they're private institutions. But when government creates you, and government by that same legislation can remove you from the equation or control and dictate what your policy is through acts of legislation, then no, you're not private, right? So just to clarify that. Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem gave a speech to the Canadian Club where he suggested that Canadian rents would probably have started to decrease if not for the Liberal government's record high immigration target. Well, that was the thing. And a lot of us, we seen the writing on the wall. But yes, we also knew, especially people who are astute and understanding in Austrian economics, right? We all knew that, yes, if interest rates continue to rise, cost and all these, then there would be less people playing games with these things, like using the housing market as a speculative asset or bubble, right? Then yes, there was a potential, and not just that, but for rents, for these things to go back the other way, with the higher interest rates. Less people playing the game or taking these outstrip risks. But no, as we're seeing, because of mass immigration, well, no matter what people's intentions were or the possible of the potential intentions, well, that has been completely negated by not just the continuation of mass immigration, but the rampant rise and increase of mass immigration. And how big is that increase? I'll get to that point. Anyways, let me just read a little bit. Canada's housing supply has not kept up with growth in our population, and higher rates of immigration are widening the gap, said Macklem while speaking at Toronto's Royal York Hotel on December 15th. Macklem's talk was a routine economic update speaking before Canadian business leaders and warning them that the next year will be difficult for many. Consumers will continue to hold back spending, businesses will see weak demand, and unemployment rate will likely increase further, said Macklem. Anyways, so yeah, that's good enough for now. Because like I say, I got a bunch more and I'm trying to get through these as quick as possible. Let me just check and see how long we've been going. So 129. Yeah, I got a few more here, folks. Be patient. Let me bring this one on. Because yeah, this is actually one of the ones that I was really wanting to get on the screen here. Because this is disturbing. Because even for most unsuspecting Canadians who think that 500,000 a year is the target, right? Obviously, there's some misleading information, right? And a misrepresentation of the reality on the ground here in Canada, if you think about this. So this, once again, Canada's population grew by more than 430,000 in Q3, Stats Can. Now, of course, I'm also well aware of, it might be people who right now, right? Maybe that entire 430,000 wasn't all people that just recently landed, right? They might be people who are already here in this country and have now just gained their citizenship. But once again, the numbers still show a constant rise and rampant increase in correlation to housing, healthcare, infrastructure, wages. All this stuff still is directly tied to each other. That's undeniable. Statistics Canada released its population estimates as of October 1st, which shows Canada's population topped 40.5 million. So actually, this would even suggest that even at the population level, just at the baseline population level, we're at 40.5 million people. And I remember it wasn't that long ago that Canada was like, oh, we've reached the threshold of 40 million. So if it's showing that the actual population is topped out at 40.5 million, then that literally suggests that 500,000 more people did get added to the population of this country in a fairly short time frame, I'll add, folks. And once again, doesn't matter in particular, although in some way, right? Not hating on the people come this country, but the central planners who are playing these games with the lives of not just existing Canadians, but the people who are seeking to come this country and the kind of negative consequence and ramification that's going to have for all of us. Like I say, you need to be thinking more about this stuff. Canada's population grew by more than 430,000 during the third quarter, marking the fastest pace of population growth in any quarter since 1957. Statistics Canada released its population estimates as of October 1st, which shows Canada's population top 40.5 million. It says the country's total population growth over the first 9 months of the year has already surpassed the total growth of any other full year, including the record set in 2022. The record high population growth has been fueled by international migration, with an increase in non-permanent residents making up most of this increase. The report shows the number of non-permanent residents increased by almost 313,000 over the 3-month period. Wow. The federal agency says the increase in non-permanent residents was driven by work and study permit holders, and to a lesser extent, refugee claimants. So there it is right there, folks, in black and white. Non-permanent residents, and it was driven by work and study. So once again, people coming here for work, and I got nothing against these people, right? I'm just pointing out the reality that, they're coming here and they're competing with Canadians who are already here. A lot of the Canadians are already here too. Let's keep in mind our immigrants that came here in years past. So even some of the immigrants that came here in years past are going to come to the same realization that I and you have in the longest time is good luck trying to strive for any amount or achieve any amount of success. You too will find out in short order that you're going to be the proverbial dog chasing his leg or his tail for all of eternity. Because your wages are never, never, ever going to increase beyond the point of inflation or to the point where you actually gain genuine purchasing power in this country. Take it from me as someone who not just lived that anecdotal experience myself since I started working when I was 15 years old. So 4+ decades, right? Or 44 decades, right? But even global news, I've covered this in past videos where they've shown adjusted for inflation, the wages for the average or typical Canadian has been stagnant for 4 decades. So, and like I say, I'll just clarify that real easy with pointing out when I started work at 15, at $4 or $5 an hour. Yes, I make more per hour now, or people in my position make more per hour. But if you adjust that for the price increase of everything that we consume or purchase or use, yes, I haven't gained anything, folks, anything. And neither have a lot of Canadians. A huge amount of Canadians. Yeah, we're just barely treading water, and we've got the only reprieve that we've seen at all is the fact that we can offset some of the crazy housing costs, fuel costs, all the the staples, clothing, the things that we actually require to thrive and survive, right? Has been offset to a degree by having access to cheaper Chinese goods, maybe at your Dollarama and places, or the fact that America and Walmart has brought a lot of cheaper goods to us as well. That's about the only thing that has genuinely helped us, right? And that's not a consequence of government benevolence or anything like that, right? That's just people finding ways to just get by. So, yeah, that's another pretty disturbing one. Now, I did want to bring these up just real quick. Not sure what the explanation is for this, but I'm just going to bring it up and share my thoughts, and could be completely wrong, could be completely off base, but I'm just going to think out loud anyways. So this is a Globe and Mail, and actually, no, I do have access to this. So maybe we'll get a little more information from this one. So let me read it a little bit here. So Globe Mail, once again, income gap between new immigrants and all Canadians shrunk by half in 4 years, PBO says. So in this article, they're saying that newer immigrants are doing quite well in comparison to Canadians. Now, I'll just mention off the top of my head, if they're going into government positions right, or getting subsidized in some way or capacity by government, I mean, I just got to think about like all the housing costs and clothing subsidies and all these things that governments have been given, or all the perks and things that have been come along to try to help some of these recent immigrants and stuff. Yes, if you give other people perks in comparison to people who are already here, and they're going to do better, right? If this person's being subsidized by the government anyway, and you're not, they're going to be doing better than you. Economics 101, right? Anyway, so like I say, this is Canadian Press, published, I believe it was a couple of days ago. Anyways, a new report from the Parliamentary Budget Office finds the gap between the average incomes of new immigrants and all tax filers had narrowed significantly. The report finds the median income of new immigrants was about 78% of the median income made by all tax filers in 2018, compared with 55% in 2014. New immigrants include those who have been permanent residents for 1 year. The PBO says the trends coinciding with this change include greater Canadian work experience, more immigration from South Asia, and greater family connections in the country. The report also finds new immigrants with professional jobs such as engineers and applied scientists made significant gains in particular. So this is something that I'm wondering. So the report also finds new immigrants with professional jobs such as engineers and applied scientists made significant gains in particular. So I would ask, if I had the chance, is that in comparison to the wages or what they made in their country of origin? Because that matters. I would like to know the answer to that question, right? Because that changes a lot of things. The PBO, or at least how people perceive or think about this, the PBO estimates that if the income gap were to be completely eliminated, productivity growth in Canada could rise by as much as 0.21 percentage points. Although that's the thing. Anyway, so that's the end of that. Although they're saying that that could happen if it was, like I say, productivity but as we're knowing, and as it's being reported, that actually productivity is on the decrease. So looks like maybe the opposite effect, right? Anyways, so I just wanted to cover this too. Like I say, just get as much information on this stream as possible. This is directly from Canada.com or Statistics Canada. Canada at a glance, immigration. Did you know in 2021? Oh, what was this? What was it? There was some politician, I don't know if it was a liberal or someone that I replied to on X, that tried to suggest that 2021 had record low immigration or something. Anyways, and I tried to debunk that, and I did debunk that, and I'm just going to use this as further evidence to that and to contribute to this particular live stream. In 2021, more than 8.3 million people, or almost 1 in 4 people, 23%, are or have been a landed immigrant or permanent resident in Canada. This is the highest proportion on record since Confederation, topping the previous record of 22.3% in 1921, folks. I mean, 1921. So that would have been what, 3 or 4 years after World War I, where, yeah, Canada's population would have shrunk by a substantial degree because a lot of the boys and men that went and fight over in that war died. So I suppose they had to try to fill that gap, with immigration. Right. So that might be a little bit of a cause and effect correlation there. But anyways, let's just thinking it loud once again. So in the past, the majority of immigrants in Canada came from Europe. In 2021, the majority of immigrants were born in Asia, including the Middle East. And an increasing share were coming from Africa. In 2021, India is the country of birth of close to 1 in 5 recent immigrants, 18.6%. So in terms of the whole economics of thing, right? So if you think about it in terms of, Europe, and once again, this isn't white versus brown or black, anything, but even right now, if you think about it, and it would have been the same way in the past, Europe, parts of Europe in particular. So that includes like France, England, Germany, right? Austria, places like that, but because these people, a lot of them all went through the same like Enlightenment era kind of thinking and improvements in economics and things, right? And of course, rise of, even if you want to suggest that unions played a role in any of this stuff, right? But we do at the very least know that historically, North America, so that's Canada, US, and Mexico, although Mexico actually a little bit later to the game in terms of, because their currency, right? That's one area where actually their currency is quite a bit lower in comparison. But, the euro, or even even if you want to talk about, right, the Deutschmark or the franc or the pound, right? I mean, those currencies aren't so much valued, so much different than, let's say, the Canada or the US dollar, that what people earning wages in that country. I mean, it wouldn't be that much different. There would obviously be difference for sure, but the difference wouldn't be nearly as stark as it would be for people come from countries whose currencies are so massively devalued in comparison to contrast to the American or the Canadian dollar, such as some of these Middle Eastern countries, right? Or even some of these Asian or African countries. We understand that a lot of these countries, right, have a currency that is valued at much, much, much less than we are. I mean, especially even if you watch any of those travel programs or YouTube videos of people travel, you see the massive difference in what their currency is worth, right? And how much these people get paid in their countries of origin in comparison, contrast to what they'd be getting paid in a country such as Canada, the US, right? So anyways, just clarifying that. So yeah, basically, anyways, there's lots of charts in there, so I'll take that off the table. So basically, even this is pointing out, so 23%, but I think we already covered that in the past live stream. And this is another one. Actually, this one here's from Stats Canada too, so I'll just close that up rather than bring that on. Canada welcomes the most immigrants in a single year in its history. This is another one just to confirm government reaches target of 401,000 new permanent residents in 2021, December 23rd, 2021. Ottawa. This one's right from Canada.ca. Once again, it'll be linked in the description. So you can use this even to debunk the people who are saying, like people that I was arguing with on X that are trying to suggest that, oh yeah, the immigration levels were record low in Canada in 2021. Bullshit, right? Bullshit. Yeah, and here I wanted to cover this one actually too. And then trust me, folks, I'll get to a few more of your comments in the live stream, and then we'll tie this bad boy up with a bow. Right? Don't worry. No worries. All right. Let's get to this one. Oh, yeah. I forgot to close that one up too. Okay. Freeland. Oh, yeah, that was infuriating. I don't know. I'm having a difficult time. It's hard to figure out who I can't stand listening to more. Trudeau or Freeland. It's a toss-up, folks. Oh, infuriating to listen to them. Just holy, like these people seem to be sociopathic in some way. or they're on those prescription drugs that just make them come across that way or something. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. Anyways, Freeland on why immigration levels are high. Canada has the social capacity to welcome immigrants. What kind of answer is that? Finance Minister's comments come in the wake of documents showing Ottawa has warned about the effects of immigration on housing supply. So this is from the National Post staff, January 12th, 2024. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland made a stop Thursday in Toronto's Canary Landing, a new rental community just east of the city's downtown, to discuss the government's new housing plans. But a question about recent warnings concerning immigration levels and housing supply elicited a less than satisfactory response. Yeah. The job is getting done, she said in her opening remarks about the government's plans to facilitate new home construction as being done in a way to really transform lives and build communities. Oh yeah, they're just going to build their own homes. Wasn't that one of the first answers? Well, then why isn't the pace been keeping up? I mean, mass immigration has been on a rampant rise for years. So why aren't we seeing not just keeping pace, but now superseding or exceeding? We're not, are we? So bullshit. Once again, I call bullshit. Freeland added, we can now tell you that more than 500,000 Canadians have now opened a tax-free first home savings account. And it'll only take you 20 years to save for that down payment. Hell. And that account only became available in the spring. So that is more than 500,000 Canadians who are one step closer to getting those first keys on their own, right? Just give it another 3 or 4 decades, and you might be able to get yourself, or bare minimum 2 decades, right? You might be able to at least get your foot in the door. Although a lot can happen in those 2 decades, can't they? Right? Wow. When the floor was open for questions, however, CBC reporter Simon Dingley asked why the government had not lowered immigration levels following warnings 2 years ago that high levels could affect housing costs and that construction had not kept pace with population growth. Freeland's answer scared the question. Anyways, folks, yeah, I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time on that, to be honest with you. Like I say, this article will be linked in the description of the stream as well. But I mean, come on. I mean, like I say, even the public sector, even their own people, right, told them years ago that, you know, this you guys are contributing to all that pain that Canadians are suffering, that all that economic pain, right? You fuckers are the cause of it. Directly, not even indirect, direct cause of it. And yet, has anything changed? No. Oh, yeah, they're spewing some rhetoric. They're trying to offer some soothing talking points to, convince the unsuspecting masses that they actually give a shit, which, come on. I mean, come on. They really don't. They really don't. And I can't help but think the fact that it was a CBC reporter asked that question, just me thinking off the top of my head, I think I even speculated on this in the past live stream, is like, yeah, maybe some of these hacks, even at the CBC, or those are part and parcel of the establishment, right? Maybe some of them are even getting sick and tired of their kids having to live in their basement into their 30s and 40s, right? You know it's got to have an effect even on these folks, right? So maybe even part of the ruling establishment are starting to get up fed up with some of this nonsense, right? Because, yeah, it has an effect on all of us. And pretending otherwise, well, once again, just give it enough time and you'll come to learn that. And here, I'll just bring this one up here. We're pretty much done here, folks. This from Bloomberg News, reposted through the National Post. Economists link Trudeau's immigration policies to rising inflation and weak productivity. We designed our own policy. We put it in place. We implemented it, and we still screwed it up. So this is reported by Daniel Boko, January 11th, 2024. Canada's current immigration policy, among the most open in the world, is now causing economic damage and needs to be reconsidered, according to the country's top economists. Like, even Canada's top economists. Now, I'm not sure who they are, because a lot of times when you have people in the media referring to top economists or experts, they're typically like professors in universities, right? That actually, as far as I know, and a lot of them seemingly have never run a business or functioned there in the private sector in their whole life. So theoretical experts, maybe, On the ground practical experts? I don't know. But either way, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's decision to dramatically increase immigration and allow a flood of temporary workers and international students without providing proper support has created a laundry list of economic problems, including higher inflation and weak productivity. Chief economist at Canada's biggest bank said Thursday during a wide-ranging panel discussion in Toronto. So even the bank guys, right? The ones that, like even some of these folks benefit from some of this mass immigration, right? Sometimes in many ways, it's good for their bottom line as well. But even they're willing to step in and say, okay, you guys have gone. I mean, when they're even willing to step in and say, okay, you guys have gone too far. Well, come on. If that's not enough to tell you, then I don't know what is, right? Frankly, I'm surprised we screwed it up because we sit in such a privileged position in Canada. Beta Karanci, chief economist at Toronto Dominion Bank, told a packed audience at an Economic Club of Canada event. Unlike many other countries, including the U.S., Canada is not dealing with poorly controlled flows of migrants across its land borders and has had time to think about the implications of its policies, Karanci said. We designed our own policy, we put it in place, we implemented it, and we still screwed it up. Hey, folks, that's a bumper sticker for government. Everything they touch, they fuck up. What was it? Was it Milton Friedman or one of those economists, Nobel Prize winning economists that said, if you put government in charge of sand, or sorry, if you put government in charge of the desert, there'd be a shortage of sand in 5 years, right? Canada accepted about 455,000 new permanent residents over the year in October 1st, while bringing in more than 800,000 non-permanent residents, a category that includes temporary workers, foreign students, and refugees. With a population growth rate of 3.2%, it's growing faster than any group of 7 nations, China or India. So even higher population growth than China or India. And we're talking about countries with huge populations and substantial growth here, right? Although that's the thing with the demographic trends of places like China, that might be contributing to that whole one-child policy thing, right? Once again, government fucking their own people over is a story as old as government itself. While there are annual targets for permanent residents, there is no cap on international student permits, and the government has made it easier for employers to hire temporary foreign workers. I'll put it bluntly. We've fallen into the population trap, said Stéphane Marion, chief economist at National Bank of Canada. An increase in the standard of living is no longer possible because you don't have enough savings to stabilize your capital to labor ratio. Boom. Faced with a backlash over housing costs, Trudeau has acknowledged the need for changes. His immigration minister, Mark Miller, has pledged to make it harder for colleges to boost foreign enrollment without providing adequate housing or services. Still, the government is under pressure to maintain high immigration levels as older workers retire and the fertility rate falls. Well, once again, there's too many people, there's too many pigs at the trough, too many special interest groups, right, that are voting to try to maintain this stuff, which is why the Trudeau Liberals are still in power in 2024. This is the problem that we have, folks. This is the problem that we have, right? While the federal government is trying to encourage more rental housing construction along the way, these numbers just don't add up, said Avery Shenfield, chief economist at CIBC Capital Markets. I'm a bit surprised that the government is moving fairly slowly on this. I think there's some urgency to bring these numbers of students and temporary workers into better balance with the arithmetic of our home building strategy because the two are working at cross purposes. So once again, these are like Canada's top bankers saying it's not just bad, but it's completely counter to creating economic prosperity for Canadians. And once again, that includes not just old stock Canadians, but the recent immigrants to this country. You're going to suffer under this shit as well, right? That's the problem. The problem is worsened in provinces that have restricted funding to post-secondary institutions, forcing the schools to make up the lost revenue with international students, Shenfeld said. The result is community colleges with branch plants full of international students in Toronto office buildings, he said. It's just really a tuition making a machine. None of the economists suggested Canada should shift to a restrictive immigration policy rather than it be more deliberate about matching the inflow of people to what the country can handle. Canadians tend to rely on immigration to staunch complaints from businesses about their difficulty hiring, several economists said. Well, that's understandable. In a way, we made it too easy for businesses to hire, said Jean-Francois Perrault, chief economist at the Bank of Nova Scotia. Well, I'm glad this Bank of Nova Scotia chief economist is pointing that out. He pointed to the U.S., which is much tougher immigration policies and higher productivity. Immigration policy makes it cheaper to bring people in rather than investing. Disastrously weak productivity and housing affordability are the biggest challenges facing the Canadian economy, said Douglas Porter, Bank of Montreal chief economist, and strong population growth factors at both. So once again, we're even seeing here where some of these economists are pointing out how crazy it is, but are they willing to advocate for a reduction in numbers? No, they admitted it, or at least one of them admitted it right here. Why? Because it's not going to be good for their bottom line or the bottom line of the kind of people that they care about or align with. So once again, this is a problem, folks. There's a lot of incentive that have been built up over decades, and even more so in just the last decade or so of creating some bad incentives for people that should be even thinking more critically about this, but to even dare to challenge or to upend the status quo would be detrimental to their own economic bottom line. So how far are they really willing to push it, right? Doesn't seem like a whole lot. Might put a few words in a comment section or in a comment in an article, right? Right? To do a little virtue signaling, but are they willing to actually, stand by their convictions, right? And actually work towards making things more reasonable for Canadians. I'm not seeing it, folks. I'm not seeing it. But anyways, let me bring this off. And once again, that'll be linked in the description as well. Let me just real quick, because this is such a fail. This is, trust me, it'll only take me a second here. Aaron Wary, right? The literal propagandist, one of the biggest mouthpieces for the Trudeau Liberals in this country, this Aaron Wary guy. But there are no simple answers to the immigration and housing question. Anxiety over housing shortfalls threatens the Canadian consensus on immigration. Aaron Wary says there's just no simple answers to the immigration and housing question, right? Well, let me tell you, Aaron, there actually is, right? It's called the old law of supply and demand that almost everyone, even people who might even agree with you in some way in terms of wanting mass immigration, even they would admit that actually, no, law of supply and demand is a real thing. And the answer to the immigration and housing problem is reducing or greatly lowering those numbers, at least up until the point where, things get to the point where they're on an even keel, right? Where not one side of the equation is benefiting at the expense of the other. If we could even get remotely close to that, it'd be great. And a real boon and benefit for not just new immigrants, but younger Canadians in particular in this country, right? So pretend that there's no easy answers. Well, actually, yes, there are. I think I heard my son sled. He's just loving it. We finally got some snow over here, so I would imagine there'll be lots of snowmobilers. Anyways, I didn't get a chance to read this one. I'm not even sure who this person is, but I'm just going to include it anyways. I'll show you folks. It could be worth reading. I was kind of going to try to get to reading it in this particular stream, but like I said, we're going to tie it up here soon. So this is Canada's Cult of Growth, Immigration by Riley Donovan. So like I said, that'll be linked in the description as well. And I believe there's just one last one. Oh, no. Yeah, actually, yeah. Oh, the last one is basically in line with the one I already showed anyways. It's from Brian Lilly from the Toronto Sun. Like I said, I try to cover, establishment media outlets, alternative media outlets, establishment media from the left, from the right. So Toronto Sun would be more right-wing. Trying to be inclusive here, right? So wherever you want to go to get your information, well, I've offered up a plethora of sources, right? Anyways, but basically just pointing out the fact that the government was warned in 2022 that high immigration numbers were putting a squeeze on housing and the health system, because that was the other thing, actually. The health system, that's another major thing that is being drastically affected. And that's something that, has very, very, very negative ramifications for all Canadians. If you can't get to the hospital or to see a doctor or a healthcare professional in time because of this mass influx, and there's just not enough people, not enough staff to keep up with this massive increase in the population. Well, yeah, that's not just an inconvenience. That is going to have direct consequences and ramifications for your health, right? Um, oh, Soji, sexual orientation, gender identity. Okay. Yeah, that's right. My bad. My bad. Okay. Thanks for pointing that out. Anyways, little PP isn't going to save Canada. Libcons are morally corrupt and the liberals are just corrupt. Same crap, different ball. Same shit, different ball. 100% liquid gal. I'm right there with you. Trudeau made a few new ministries like women, gender, and diversity. How many work under that BS ministry? Well, exactly. That's another good point, liquid gal. Thanks for bringing that up, actually. Good point. Okay, so there's a few more comments. I'm just going to read these few comments and then we're going to tie this live stream up. We're actually at the 2-hour mark. So, like I say, just be a couple minutes here, folks. Trudeau is willing to bring in 500,000 Palestinians. Yeah. Is it 500,000? I'm not sure on that one. But, anyways, that's either way. I do know that they're looking to bring in a bunch of Palestinians. I'm not sure how well they're going to be at, weeding through these folks, right? Like it's the thing when it comes right down to the individual level. I don't know. There might be people being persecuted. I don't fucking know. I have no idea. But when it comes to this stuff, once again, I try to avoid that stuff like the plague as to where they're coming from. But it obviously isn't good no matter what, right? No matter what. This is not good. Banks and government were giving incentives to black people, allowing black people to borrow up to 500,000 to open businesses with zero interest, not sure for how long. Well, I mean, that very well is very real, is a very real possibility. And the problem with that is, right, and I'll just point this out. I'm not begrudging towards anyone, regardless of your skin color. But think about what that does. So when the government does, right, no matter, and to me, it doesn't matter which side they're playing. If government was just propping up white people at the expense of black people, I'd be just as much against it as in a scenario or a situation like this, where it's the exact opposite, where they're propping up, let's say, a black person, right, or subsidizing them some way, as opposed to a white person as a means to give them an advantage or a leg up. Or that's how that to me, we hope that people think more critically about things, but this kind of shit seems like a recipe for creating races needlessly, right? Where you're genuinely putting races against each other. Now, of course, people like myself would like to come in and be able to help explain these things more properly to reduce that amount of hostility towards the races or animosity among the races, right? But it's really fucking hard to do so when the thought leaders, the experts, those in academia, right, the establishment media, the ruling class, so many people are playing this identity politics game and pitting races and sexes against each other, or religions against each other, for that matter. This is the difficult part. So when you're picking winners or losers in the economy, regardless of their skin color or what's between their legs or the religion they align with, you're automatically going to create a whole new class of victims, or at least people who perceive themselves as victims, and stir up even more animosity and division. That's a fucking major problem that the ilks of Trudeau or the Jagmeet Singhs of the world, I don't know how they don't understand that shit. That should be something that any human being should understand. But once again, these are politicians at the end of the day. And do they really care as much as anyone else? No. Why? Because they don't, like I say, their positions in life and how they live is so outstripped and far removed from anything the rest of us average Canadians experience that they just don't have any clue how to think, which is why they constantly got to reference polls and how to think, right? Hey, thanks, Peggy and Terry Haas. Really appreciate that. Thank you for joining the stream, by the way. If you're still in the stream, actually, seems how you look like you're new to the stream, hit that like. And if the rest of you folks wouldn't mind doing so as well, and maybe subscribe, and you get a chance to see my future live streams that I plan on doing lots of going forward. So thanks. Really appreciate that. And thank you, Liquid Gal. Thanks, Ben. Have a great week ahead. You too. I don't understand why our education system is now a business with taking in foreign students right down to elementary school. Well, it's because of the incentive, right? A lot of people are benefiting themselves at other people's expense, which is why libertarians like myself have been saying for a long time, no matter where you are or reside on that political spectrum, when government has this much power or effect or influence over your personal or social or economic lives, that's why libertarians, well, we want to get to the point where they have no effect in your life. But at the very least, we should all be, no matter where you come at things, trying to greatly reduce the size and scope of government so that it's not, doesn't have so much power and influence that we feel we constantly have to be on the defensive, right? That's a major contributing factor with all this division is government literally is force, and people are using that force, picking up that force, that proverbial gun in the room, and using it against each other, which obviously is going to create a lot of anger and animosity among the population or retaliation as well, which once again, an eye for an eye just leaves us all blind. So thanks for all you folks that joined the live stream. Really appreciate that. Appreciate all the comments, and look forward to talking to you in the next live stream. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.